Hello friend, and welcome to Borgcast Original Series 3.15 with Peter and Anne-Marie.
Hello.
Tonight we're covering Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Or as the Japanese would have it, Hostility on Planet Charon. Except there isn't any hostility on Planet Charon, it's all on the Enterprise. But never mind. The story is written by Lee Cronin.
Oh, that's somebody's thingy in it.
Yes, well done, Gene L.
Coon, there we are.
The original story is titled Down from Heaven. Oh. And in his version, a devil chases an angel. Wow. I mean, that's up there with Spock's brain when it comes to hokey ideas. This, unsurprisingly, was his last involvement in the series. To be fair, he was working on another series at the time, so his concentration wasn't really on this. The teleplay was by Oliver Crawford, who was one of the writers on the Galilei 7 back in the, I think that was the second season or the first season, I can't remember now. Anyway, a long time ago.
Yes.
Directed by Judd Taylor, third of 5. The last one was Wink of an Eye. It was he that came up with the ridiculous idea of the two-tone Chironians. Although it would have originally been a horizontal split from the waist somehow. I mean, they'd have to have worn shorts for that to be obvious, wouldn't they?
And it would have just looked like clothes,
yeah,
wouldn't they? Well, you two-tone in and of itself.
Nice. I mean, it's a shame they didn't go with a horizontal split across the face, so they had sort of masks of opposing colours. That would have been better, but never mind. In the last episode, co-producer Robert Justman oversaw before leaving, citing the declining quality of the show, the way it was treated by the network, and it's also been suggested he was cheesed off that he didn't get the producer's job, which went to Freiberg, of course, other than himself. But I think he's better off without it, to be honest.
I mean, at this stage, it's like rats leaving a sinking ship, isn't it?
It is a little bit, yes.
It's headed straight for us.
It just disintegrated.
What is it now?
It seems to have deposited an alien presence.
Where?
Right here, Captain.
This ship is now under my direction.
I will not return to Charon with him, to a land of murdering oppressors. He's a liar. Herded us together like cattle and then sold us as slaves.
Beale, you keep this up and you'll never get to Charon with your prisoner. This will be your final battlefield. Your 50,000 years of pursuit will have been wasted.
I am captain of the ship, and it will follow whatever course I set for it, or I will order its destruction.
You're bluffing.
Computer, destruct sequence 1A.
Destruct sequence completed and engaged.
Kill him!
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So, do you want to know what happens in this feast?
It's a feast of patheticness.
Yeah. So, the Enterprise is on its way to planet Arianas Grande, where a bacterial infection threatens to render the planet totally lifeless unless they can decontaminate. And on their way there, they see a Starfleet shuttle ahead. It's being flown very erratically, and it looks like the one that's been stolen from a starbase. Uhura attempts to make contact. There's no response, but then Spock says that there is a life form, but it's either injured or ill. So they beam the life form aboard, but they've sent a security team. The ship is then taken into the hangar bay, but they've tried to fade it out, but it says Enterprise.
Yeah, and 1701 in very big letters.
In fact, it's 1701/7.
Yeah, it's the number 7 shuttle for it, but yeah. The problem is here, obviously, they're just reusing stock footage from the Galileo 7. So, yes. In the special edition, I've grudgingly got to admit the special edition version of this is better. They rename it the Da Vinci.
Okay.
And it says Starbase 4 on it instead, which makes
far
more sense.
Yeah.
And you get some much more dynamic shots of the shuttle coming into the shuttle bay, although, unfortunately, it does look primitive CG. But anyway, I suppose it's far better than having clearly the wrong insignia on it. So yeah.
And out of the shuttle, a bloke falls, collapsing, and his face is half white and half black.
Shocking. This is Loki, played by Lou Antonio, who is in 1967's Cool Hand Luke. A long TV acting CV, including 2 different roles in 2 episodes of Mission Impossible, and Hawaii 5-0, a Bonanza, and an episode of The Monkees.
Here we come, walking Down the street, we get the funniest looks from everyone we meet. Hey, hey, we're the monkeys, and people say we monkey around, but we're too busy singing to put anybody down.
Oh, I haven't seen that in years. He also directed 87 shows, including 3 episodes of The Flying Nun, and 3 episodes of Gentle Ben. Both of which he also appeared in as an actor in one of the episodes. But let's face it, this makeup job is ridiculous.
Yep.
His name isn't apparently a reference to Loki as in, Asgardian.
Yeah.
But to the Norse god of fire, Logi, apparently. Oh. I thought he was a Norse god of snot, but there we go.
Yeah.
That would be Lugi, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, you have McCoy saying that this pigmentation is natural. He can't explain it, thinks it's a one-off, a mutation. The guy comes round and when asked about, confronted about taking the shuttle, he says his need justified taking it. He's told he will face charges and he's very grumpy, and he says he won't take any more of your vindictive cross-examinations. He comes from the planet Charon, I'm not sure.
Sharon?
Planet Charon, yeah. Which Kirk describes as being in the southernmost part of the galaxy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Let's not go there.
And he's like, I was going to return it after, and it's like, you're going to return the shuttle after what? And then he sort of clams up. Then there's contact with another alien ship, except they're reading a ship but they can't see it. Basically, they've got no money, so it turns out to be invisible.
Yeah.
It's on a collision course that results in them disintegrating. The ship disintegrating, but then it has transported another black and white dude aboard.
This is Bele, or Beale, I should say. It looks like Bele, the way it's spelt, but it's Beale, which just makes me think of Ian Beale from EastEnders. Played by Frank Gorshin, our second 60s Batman star in as many episodes.
I thought I recognised him from something.
Yeah, yep. He had a very long career, including 2 of the best episodes of Buck Rogers, Plot to Kill a City. You might be recognising him from that as well. He was in Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys and an episode of Murder, What She Wrote. He does angry very well,
yep,
which helps for the role. And his character's name is a reference to a Hawaiian fire god, apparently, Pele. Presumably what the footballer was named after, Pele.
No, because Pele came from Brazil, so it might be named after something completely different.
Well, anyway.
Right, so they've sort of taken the names and then made them something else.
Yes, I don't know, it's odd.
Okay. So is Charon supposed to be a reference to Sharon then?
Which is
Greek mythology, I
isn't
think.
it? Yes. Could be, because that came up when we did Ulysses,
yeah.
Didn't it? Nah, it was in the past. We're moving forward.
And you're saying this is better, is it?
I'm not saying this is better at all. No, definitely not. Ulysses at least had the virtue of only being 25 minutes long an episode.
Yeah.
This overstays its welcome by about 50 minutes.
Yeah. Beale is here to claim, what is it, Loci, I think they pronounce it, is it? Saying he's been convicted of treason. And he wants to claim him, but he's got to be bound by the Enterprise's regulations while he's on there. And he sort of huffs and puffs. Meanwhile, Loci is saying that they were slaves and tried to break their chains. And Bill gets really cross, and Kirk's like, look, we've got no extradition procedures. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Starbase 4, because that's where we're going to drop him off, because he needs the shuttle from there, and we can sort it all out while we're there. And he's sort of very cross. The next thing you know, Chekhov says they're going off course. There's Scotty's down in engineering looking at stuff. He goes to auxiliary. He can't explain it. There's no explanation. And it turns out to be Beale controlling the ship through his will. Right.
Another super-powered alien. Hooray! Because we haven't had very many of those in Trek.
No. So Kirk just says, "This is my ship. It goes where I want." And the other guy isn't listening, so he starts off the destruct sequence. Because he says, "I'm going to set the self-destruct sequence rather than it be take over." And I think that's right, isn't it? If you've got a hostile force that's going to take over your ship, that's what you're supposed to do, I think.
It's a pretty ballsy move as well, which is, matches Kirk's rep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kirk goes ahead with his threat to destroy the ship, and we get the classic destruct sequence 1, code 1, 1A, etc. The computer makes it clear it's not just the code, which is pants, let's face it, but there's voice recognition that's required. Which is chancy, considering we can recreate voices now. But anyway. The dialogue is famously reused in Star Trek 3, but with a more realistic 60-second countdown, and Kirk, Scott and Chekhov issuing the codes, as of course Spock's kind of dead at that point. Quite why they haven't changed the nav codes in all that time, something of a mystery, but there we go. Certainly stretches out the runtime of the episode, given the amount of computer chuntering that takes place.
It sounds terrible, doesn't it?
Scotty and Scott's code entries. Apparently they only get a 30-second countdown, whereas later Enterprises come up with an adjustable timer, which is a much better idea.
Just a little bit.
So if Beale can control the Enterprise engines, how come he doesn't have control over the auto-destruct systems? I mean, he doesn't, because he agrees that Kirk has the final command over the fate of the ship and turns it over to him.
Well, maybe because that doesn't involve force.
Of course, later on, he does.
Well, he zaps them. That's not the same as taking them over and making them work.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. They're given the freedom of the ship to learn from the crew's tolerance for all, which seems a bit daft, but there we go.
Yeah.
But there's not much they can do, because it's already been shown these guys have shields, so they can't really sort of put them in the brig or anything. They can't be coerced. Lokai praises Kirk's just words, which is about one of the few good things that Lokai does, because he's irritating throughout the rest of the episode. Spock calls the duo fascinating, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
Scotty calls them disgusting.
Yep.
We see Lokai, mostly in shadow for some reason, lecturing some of the crew in the rec room about his innocence and the threat of Beale, which is a strange directorial choice. Sulu innocently claims the persecution on Earth only happened back in the 20th century. Oh, if only. Spock overhears and looks as concerned as Spock ever looks. This scene doesn't go anywhere, though, as none of the crew are won over by this rando, so I don't know, it's just padding again. Word comes from Starfleet via Uhura that since there's no treaty between them, they can't hand over Lokai to Beale. Beale claims Lokai will twist the minds of others to put them at each other's throats. Again, he doesn't manage that. Kirk tells him their minds are not up for twisting by anybody. The Commissioner changes tack and claims Lokai is clearly visibly inferior. Spock points out the ridiculousness of that, and we get to the rather feeble point the episode is making.
Yeah.
Spock cites the example of Vulcan adopting logic to avoid mutual destruction. Kirk suggests Lokai might change, but Beale denies this possibility. Spock points out that all things change, which is true, but sadly some things don't seem to change quickly enough, and other things change for the worst. But that's not really the optimistic outlook of Trek, of course, so... The Vulcan also points out that their people must have been monocoloured at one time, which I don't follow the logic of, ironically. No. I mean, where's he come up with that one? Having arrived at Ariana Grande, they begin decontamination procedures with Scott in command, which is nice since this is an engineering mission. And it's great how he gives Sulu, Chekhov and Uhura logical jobs to perform for their roles as well.
Yep.
In the remastered edition, we see the Enterprise in orbit with a panel open at the bottom of the engineering section, presumably spraying something, I don't know. But it's a nice touch. Beale looks to be starting an anti-evolution rant, which I guess was a brave topic for Trek to bring up in the 60s, given there are still folk who deny it today. Spock shuts him down with science.
Yeah.
Kirk orders them to head to Starbase 4 and Beale joins him on the bridge. The captain makes the mistake of recording a log where he says there are no problems, and we cut to Chekhov reporting a problem. Spock discovers that some of the ship's memory banks have been burned out, and surprise, surprise, Beale lets them know that they're directional control and self-destruct. I mean, why he didn't do that before, don't know, but... They all just watch as he zaps a control panel, which is only understandable if you remember they can't touch him earlier. Lokai arrives and demands they kill Beale. Like, they couldn't stun him earlier. How are they going to kill him? But Chekhov points out that they're not killers anyway. The others have obviously realised he's no persecuted saint, and Spock suggests his followers are all dead due to him. The two Sharonians fight, glowing Ready Brek style as they do so.
Didn't we have another alien that had
Yeah,
Ready Brek glow?
it's a regular effect, I think it's fair to say. The Shack team finally kicks in as Kirk informs them their respective missions will fail if they take one another and the ship out.
And you, Lokai, you'll die here in space. You'll inspire no more disciples. Your cause will be ended.
Kirk asks the Commissioner to return the ship to his control, and he agrees. Why? Is it because they're nearly at Sharon anyway?
Yeah, I think so.
But he doesn't say that, which would have been a good bit of dialogue to have included. They put Sharon up on the view screen, but now it's uninhabited. And the special edition has a very cool blasted planet with bits of magma and stuff, which is quite nice. There's a real Everybody's Dead Dave vibe about the two Sharonians repeatedly asking if anyone is left alive.
Where is everybody home?
They're dead, Dave.
Who is?
Everybody, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Selby?
They're all dead. Everybody's dead, Dave.
Peterson isn't, is he?
Everybody is dead, Dave.
Not Chen.
Gordon Bennett, yes, Chen, everybody. Everybody's dead, Dave.
Rimmer.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Wait. Are you trying to tell me everybody's dead?
They renew their fight. The Shachter pleads for them to give up their destructive hate. And then there's a very long naff sequence of them running around the ship.
Terrible.
Unrealistically, nobody runs like that.
No, with the head. I mean, even Chris Akabusi's head wobble wasn't like that. I mean, and they're supposed to be looking tired, and it's terrible.
And we have pictures of burning buildings mixed over the image. And Spock gives a pointless running commentary like this is some sort of horse race.
Yeah,
they're coming on the final straight now.
Yeah.
The reason for this nonsense is that the script was running under time and they needed padding. Freiberg reckoned they come up with a great solution. They really didn't. Lokai beams down to the planet and guess what? Bill follows him and this is treated like a massive surprise. And off the Enterprise flies. Wow. Abandoned Sosity, all ye who enter here. Aside from the iconic if rather silly self-destruct scene, this is just naff.
Yeah.
Admittedly, there are plenty who find pointless reasons to hate others still, but it's not like they'll pay attention to this trite morality tale. The Sharonians are ironically depicted in too black or white a manner to be effective, and you just hate them both.
Yeah.
There's not enough story for the runtime, and what there is just naff. Guess what we think of this, folks? It's TOS. I mean, the Sharonians' look is, I guess, classic, because it's one of the things you think of when you think of Trek.
It's iconic.
But, yeah, it's the episode itself is a non-event.
It's really bad. It's either ridiculous or boring.
Yep.
Is there anything good that I can say about this episode?
For me, the best thing is Scotty in command and giving orders to Uhura, Chekhov and Sulu.
When they piss all over the planet and turn it yellow.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the best bit by a country mile. The rest of it's rubbish.
I think the only other thing I like is the scene where he starts saying, "Oh, you believe you're descended from apes?" And he's like, "No." Spock says, "No." The actual theory is that lower life forms have evolved into higher ones, and just the withering put down.
Yes, the look he gives him.
I like that. I think it's that and your Scotty stuff.
Yep.
Are they even 30 seconds combined? I mean, really?
No.
There's not really much here. To and right at the end, he's going to set course for Starbase 4. I mean, the shacking continues when there isn't anything dramatic there.
Maybe he was just told to stretch it out because again they were running under time.
Oh, God, no.
Well, let's find out if anybody actually liked this episode. Boss has this to say: this was an odd episode with a clear but bleedingly obvious message about
just
racial division and prejudice. It's another cheap one, with the action being set entirely on the Enterprise, but at least that means we see plenty of the crew. I think this would have been more interesting if the aliens had not been superpowered.
Yeah.
It didn't add anything, and the going backwards and forwards between the planets was unnecessary. The setting of the self-destruct sequence was notable only for the extreme close-ups and the laughably easy-to-guess codes used by the crew.
Yeah.
It would have been more interesting if the time had been used to explore the history of the two characters and their planet. Was it ever explained why Lokai was in a stolen shuttlecraft? No, I mean, basically, there's a whole backstory there. We
just don't find out.
But I'm not that bothered. The rest of the episode is filled with talky scenes, shacking, and repeated shots of the Enterprise orbiting the planet, cleaning up the bacteria. The two aliens spend their time bickering up until the discovery of their destroyed planet. I did like this twist, but the scenes that followed were bizarre.
Yes.
They just endlessly run around the Enterprise as the main cast commentate on their behaviour. Everyone seemed surprised that they ended up in the transporter room when that was the most obvious place they would go.
Yes.
For the time, a popular TV show tackling racism was a good thing, but why did they have to make it so odd? I would add to that, why did they have to make it so dull? I think, well, there you go.
Yeah, and so blatant.
Yeah, it's subtlety again. We've heard from Sampo and Yona.
Hello.
Hello.
So we just watched Let That Be Your Last Battlefield.
Yes, what happened in it?
Good old-fashioned racism.
Well, I think it was a critic against racism.
Yes, of course it was. I mean, I meant that there was racism in the episode, and the episode was very subtly trying to tell us that it's bad. Okay.
Yeah, and irrational and illogical. Can we talk about programming of computers? So I think the first command they programmed to the computer was self-destruction, since the code was 1A, etc.
Yeah, and 1A, 2B, 3C.
Anyway.
Yeah, Garibaldi had the right idea when he had his code as peekaboo. But yeah.
Because who would guess?
Yeah, this was a really odd episode because, I guess I have to say that the message, I mean, I'm all for the message, racism bad, hate bad, all that. Yeah. But it's just, I mean...
How about making a purge in a planet that has some kind of bacterial? Wasn't that some sort of genocide?
Well, depends on your point of view. But, I mean, did they just run out of script? Because, I mean, the sequence when they were eradicating the bacteria, that felt like 5 minutes. And, like, doing the first pass, doing the second pass, doing the third pass. All done, let's go.
Well, I guess they just needed something somewhere else to go instead of the planet they were going.
But the whole thing could have happened off screen, but... the cameraman he had too much coffee or something whenever they went to red alert. It was like, whoa.
It seems that crew had already got used to the emergencies since they were just walking the normal speed and they were just chilling.
They're all professionals.
Yeah, and no violence. No bigotry or anything. I think they were lying a little bit.
Well, I think the Federation is a sort of, I mean, there's no discrimination there except a little against women, I guess. But I mean, the Federation doesn't use violence. That's clearly a lie. I mean, that there's almost no episodes where there isn't violence. So, and again, this was an episode where something took over the Enterprise and they're going. So, I mean, it happens almost at least every second episode now, it seems.
Seems, yeah.
One thing is that, I mean, haven't they really come across anything more alien before? Because they come across a race with 2 different colors and this must be a unique mutation or something like, I mean...
Haven't they ever seen a zebra before?
Well, that's a very good point. I guess they're all extinct or something.
And the idea was that they had to blend from 2 different origins, one black, one white, and...
Yeah, again, very subtle. I wonder, was it a coincidence that the racist planet was in the south of the galaxy?
Yeah, I thought that, yes, the idea went straight.
Not that there is a south in space, but never mind. And if we didn't get the message, let's add 5 minutes of running in the end with some fires over importance.
Never ever hire Spock doing commentaries in Olympic Games, please.
Yeah, he's now on deck 3. He's now on deck 5.
He's passing the conference room.
Yeah, I mean that.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, this whole episode contained so many sort of pointless sequences that weren't even
funny. Though it was fun watching them run, and that's poor guy who just happens to walk on his daily chores, and
he tackled him properly. Yeah,
that was the most exciting thing in the episode. That poor guy, I guess.
Really oddly paced episode.
Yeah.
seems like they only had the script for half an episode and they just had to fill it out.
And no ending laughter.
Well, let's just say that an ending joke there would have been even more inappropriate than usual. Like, that's my genocide.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on until next week then, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, let's not have Spock as a commentator.
Oh dear. And yeah, the running was funny, but it shouldn't have been.
No.
It really shouldn't have been.
No. And there were so many pointless sequences. Yeah. I can't decide always whether the Federation are deluded or they have high ideals that they don't always live up to.
Well, Star Trek 6 springs to mind. There's a deal of prejudice in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe there's a version of Star Trek 4 where a probe comes back for a zebra.
Yeah, they
extinct.
clearly do. You're not wrong. They don't know what a zebra is. It's not possible to have split pigmentation like that. No.
The zooming in and out of the red alert, by the way, was a directorial touch.
Oh, made me feel
rubbish.
sick.
Yeah. But ultimately, yes, you can't argue with the message, but there's not enough going on. So.
No. Do you think that's why they said that it was the south of the galaxy when the galaxy has no... Is it a dig at the south of the US?
I don't know, but I mean, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense.
Not
Anyway.
really. No.
We also heard from Jeff. The Garth Marenghi quote was never more apt.
I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
And sadly, I really like the self-destruct scene. Well, that's all right. I mean, it's okay, but only because it's done a lot better in 3, I think. Not for the dramatic implications, but for the nuts and bolts aspect of how it's achieved.
Thank you.
Neil, we've heard from the Llama Gods.
Llama Scotty, Fixie Coeg, Trieg. Riddle me this. Well, it finally had to happen, didn't it? It finally had to happen. Star Trek has finally gone too far. It's too much. This is just absolute woke nonsense, isn't it? What are they doing here? This is just woke garbage, trying to say that you shouldn't just persecute people for the colour of their skin, even if it's straight... no, okay, I can't carry on, can I? I can't carry on. So, although I have to say that whilst this episode is about as subtle as a sock full of dilithium crystals to the face, I think it's still too subtle for some people to actually get properly, isn't it? I think the kind of internet commentators that complain about TV shows being woke these days would have missed the point of this episode because it is far too subtle for them. There's some really not very bright people out there on the interwebs, isn't there? So yes, this is an iconic episode, isn't it? A very iconic episode. Back when I was getting the Next Generation, this is the episode everyone brought up when they talked about classic Trek because, you know, it's got a very simple, very basic premise and it's one that's very engaging and immediately obvious. So, yeah, I can understand why people did that. And it is a very good, very strong, simple concept using a very simple visual cue to basically shout at the audience for 50 minutes. Racism's stupid, isn't it? It'll get you nowhere apart from everyone dead. And yeah, that's a good, great point, and this is actually kind of moralising that Star Trek is famous for, unless you're an internet commentating imbecile. But unfortunately, the concept is all the episode has as well. There isn't really much content to it apart from that. There's that idea, and it is just spread far, far too thin. Essentially, what this could boil down to is a kind of two-hander episode that has made some episodes of Star Trek classics, like DS9's Duet, I'm thinking of particularly. And the guest cast are good, especially Frank Gorshin, as you'd expect. The story could have had some of that kind of drama there with the oppressed and the oppressor. There's some really good stuff to be mined there. But ultimately, at the end of the day, despite the quality of the cast, and even the regular cast do some good work in this episode, it's just not there. There's just not enough there to do anything, which is really unfortunate. Everyone's doing their best, but there's just so little story there, and it's just so obvious that they have no budget left at this point. This whole episode's strung out so much just aboard the Enterprise. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a real shame, really, because there's such a strong episode that could have been written in this. I mean, the director seems to be trying, but even the director's struggling as well. I mean, there's some nice touch in the episode. The auto-destruct sequence is a really tense sequence. Whether you like the constant close-ups on eyes and mouths and slightly surprisingly stained teeth is a matter of personal taste, of course, but at least the director's trying something different there to try and get some tension out of basically not having any money to do anything. I really like the scene where Lokai is giving his speech in the mess hall, and it's all shot through a gap in the doors with Spock listening outside to some of it, with Lokai's shadow playing on the mess hall wall. Again, that's a really nice use of making do with what they had. It makes it really interesting. Unfortunately, though, the story doesn't match up to it. Yeah, Lokai has that whole speech and everything, but he doesn't actually seem to rally the Enterprise crew, which is what you expect from what Bill says. Bill says he always drums up followers wherever he goes, but we don't get any evidence of that on the Enterprise, which we really should have seen. It would be nice to have seen the actual Enterprise crew taking sides with one or the other. It would have been nice to explore the whole idea, but it just, again, goes nowhere. It's just about Kirk being upset that someone's taking control of his ship. So, yeah, the director tries there, but again, there's not so much story. There is a bit of nonsense, though, with the red alerts, with the Wayne's World crash zooms in and out on the red alert siren, which just doesn't really work at all. I didn't like that at all. And the climactic scenes of Bill and Lokai running down the corridors with library footage of buildings burning down sort of overlaid on top of them. Again, that's just really, really highlights where they just needed a little bit of budget for this episode. I mean, you get the idea of what they're doing. They're both really mourning the destruction that's come to their homeworld. They realise the futility of what they've done. But, I don't know, you needed some scenes on the planet or something. They needed something better than that than just to really sell their despair. I mean, it just looks a bit, well, cheap. It is cheap, isn't it? And, yeah, it's a big shame. It's a huge shame. So, yeah, as I say, there's a decent concept here. But throughout most of the episode, I was busy checking the time, wondering when it was going to be over because, yeah, there just wasn't enough made of it. And it's a shame because there is such a good idea there, but we needed some conflict on the starship. But, of course, no interpersonal conflict on Starfleet ships, as we all know. The episode does beg the question, of course, why have they not used self-destruct before? There have been many, many episodes where the Enterprise has been taken captive. Why is it taking them to this point to come up with it? So, yeah, there's a bit of a strange one there. But never mind, try not to think about things like this. This is meant to be a standalone episode of the week kind of thing. So there you go. Ultimately, though, the main entertainment for me from this episode came from the constant talk of that fact that their main mission was actually meant to be disinfection of Uranus. Yeah, I know that's not how they pronounce the word, but I was watching with subtitles, so yeah, disinfecting Uranus for the entire episode. Yeah, that's me. That's where I am. Look, it's only the second week in January. Allow me this. So yeah, as I say, nice idea, no budget, and a story that could have done with a few more passes, but there we go. So it's not a classic episode by any means, but it is certainly iconic. So yeah, so I'll be interested to find out what everyone else made of this one, whether anyone thinks it's classic or whether it's merely iconic at best. I hope everyone in the UK has thawed out from a recent cold snap, and that listeners in other parts of the world are all safe. And until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Eeyore?
Thank you. You're right. It's shouting at the audience for 50 minutes. There just isn't anything else there.
Nope.
There's just, the actors all try their best apart from Shatner. Well, he's trying his best. He's just not any good.
He's mostly okay until about, there's about 50 minutes to go and then he kind of gives in, basically.
But, the other actors are... The guest cast are...
I wasn't very keen on Lokai, whose actor's name I can't remember. I thought he was very one-note and irritating as a result.
I wonder whether
Gorsham was much better, because at times he was charming and other times he was threatening, and so he had range.
Yeah. I don't know. But... There just isn't enough there. It needed something more to go with it. In terms of the not seeing the self-destruct sequence before, my thinking is that it was brought in after some of the other episodes.
Yeah,
that we saw.
that would have been a nice little bit of dialogue, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, now we've got this.
Yeah.
Because wasn't like the Corbomite manoeuvre, famously, which they used twice, kind of based on a bluff of doing this?
Yeah.
Oh no, that was... Or was it just like a massive weapon? I thought he said he could explode the Enterprise, and so it's kind of like, well, that would be a really useful thing to have, wouldn't it? Let's do it. Yeah. So it's evolution, which is fair enough. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. Even this, it doesn't matter how obvious you are for right-wing keyboard warriors. It's just
not going to make any difference, is it?
No, they're only interested in.
This will persuade nobody.
No, they're only interested in.
And in fact, those of us who actually agree with the message are like, "Oh, really? This is so awful."
Yeah.
So, never mind.
It's when it's done at its best. You've got people who might have different views to you, and they might be wrong views, but they're open-minded. So maybe those are the views they've grown up with, for example, or they're in a culture where this is the norm and that needs challenging. And then you make them think. And you don't necessarily change their minds overnight, but they start asking the right questions. But to do that, you've got to be not as obvious as this. I don't know that this would have helped anyone because
again, as I said, ironically, this episode is too black and white to be, really carry any weight one way or the other.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. That people whose minds might be changed by the message if it was done better are just going to either be laughing or they're just going to be really pissed off.
If you could see why the guys were behaving like they are, but because it's just so ridiculous, it's like, oh well.
Yeah.
And Lokai's speech in the mess hall goes nowhere. You're quite right.
Well, it's not directed right. Do you know what I mean?
The directing is interesting and suggests that it's going somewhere, but it doesn't. So
no, but it's sort of in shadow and sort of,
I initially thought it was in shadow because they didn't have time to put his makeup on, but you actually see him walk past.
Oh, okay.
So you do see at least the black side of his face anyway, so maybe they didn't have time to do the white size and that.
Or maybe he smudged it because it was irritating him.
I don't know. And yes, I was wondering why I'd seen those ridiculous zoom shots before when they do the red alerts. Wayne's World, yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
We finish as ever with the Pie Man.
Hello, Args. Parry here to talk about Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Now, they were quite subtle about it, but I think this one might have been about racism. I'm not sure. It's easy to miss. Again, another jab at anyone who says, oh, Trek's gone woke now. It's always been woke. And when you say, oh, but they did it in a more subtle way. No, they didn't. This is what you had. It's the only people who didn't see through this were the inbred hicks in the southern states of America, or in any parts of America, to be honest. I won't pick on the South, who genuinely didn't see this as a racism allegory. Now, that said, one of the things about things being progressive is Trek was more or less, or at least for its time, big asterisks next to that, is the thing is that you sometimes look at it nowadays and say, yeah, you were trying, but I don't quite know if you hit. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. On the thing of the racism allegory, I think part of the problem is both of them are absolute arseholes. Both Lokai and Bale, or the Riddler, rather, are absolute dickheads. Bale being a smug arsehole who's superior, and Lokai being, because you have to kill him, and, they both come across. And the problem is, once you see this as a racism allegory, you see, they were so close, because you had the idea of Lokai being the oppressed, the Bale's people oppress them and don't give them rights and treat them like vermin. But the problem is with pitching them both, with pitching Lokai as, because they went on down this hate rabbit hole of both of their hate is all that's fueling them. The problem with doing that with the racism allegory does make it all seem that you're both sidesing a bit. That you're basically saying, oh, in the end, the black people who don't want to be oppressed and who are getting quite aggressive about not being stomped on are just as bad as the white people doing the oppression, and it doesn't really realise that power dynamic. It's close to it because it's there. But the fact that they kind of make Lokai such a crossing arsehole, and, quite aggressive with that, does just, his thing with stealing the shuttle, I didn't steal your shuttle, I merely had a greater use for it. It's a Rocket Raccoon on the, what if I take something that belongs to someone else? It's ridiculous. And the problem with kind of doing that nowadays, to me, at least in this watch through, made me feel like they were both siding in a situation where you really did have an oppressor and an oppressee. So there's that. The other big fault with this episode is it's actually quite dull. For the most part, it's people milling about, particularly the end. The end drags with them doing sort of the slow jog, and all you've got is Spock commentating. I get what they're going for in the Kirk's just done with this, they're ridiculous, they're going to kill each other, they're going to fight each other or chase each other, never ending on a radiation blast world until they all die out. And it's very sad, and isn't it ridiculous about the things hate drives people? I get that's what they're doing, but God, they drag it out. It's quite cool to see the self-destruct system used. That was quite good. Although, again, I reckon Kirk went over. I'm guessing the computer, once Kirk told it, doing the countdown, he said, after 5 seconds, nothing can stop it. I'm guessing when Kirk told the computer at the 5 seconds, it pauses it while he reads out his code, because otherwise he should have been stuffed. And there's some, I don't know if the director was trying new things, possibly that bored with the script, that they were trying a whole load of weird, so you have a whole load of close-ups on people's mouths, the weird in and out thing they kept doing in the red alert siren. So there's kind of some quite confusing and disturbing directorial stuff. But in the end, all this really is Kirk saying, I don't want to go to your planet. I want to go and spray this planet, what I was actually meant to do. I don't really want to be involved in extraditing others. I just want to take you guys to the starbase and make you not my problem. And can you all stop being dickheads? To which the answer was no. And so as a result, it's not particularly exciting to watch. I think it's one that gets bigged up a lot by people saying, look at the subtle racism allegory. But then when you actually watch it, you go, yeah, it's just, so you clear, what was it, there's other, I know other writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. So yeah, I've got to admit at this one, I do not consider it a classic at all. I think it's actually a bit over, one that kind of gets overrated. So all the reason we today is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I hope to feedback in the next one. But until then, bye for now.
Bye. Yeah, you're right. There is both siding going on here because he's not sympathetic enough for a character.
Again, it's the ridiculousness of it.
Yeah.
It's not going to persuade anybody as a result. Yeah. And can you both stop being dicks? No. Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
That's the plot summary. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Subtle it ain't.
No.
Well, and we got better to come. On the 30th of January, we're covering Whom Gods Destroy. And next week, on the 23rd, we'll be covering episode 2 of Lower Decks Season 5, Shades of Green. Yes, I think we're doing this right with helping us keep going with the Lower Decks in between. So there we are.
Yes.
Ironically, rather more subtle than the original series. Who would have thought that? Until next time, take care. Cheery bye.
Bye.
The Star Trek theme was written by Alexander Courage, and here was arranged and performed by Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Pelastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
We have a Facebook group which you're welcome to join.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Find us on Blue Sky at broadcastammo.bsky.social.
And I'm at revorg.bsky.social.
Shut it down!